When you sit down to prep a modern tabletop role-playing session, there's this underlying expectation of mathematical symmetry.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, it feels almost like you're building a skyscraper using these very standardized load-bearing blueprints. You calculate the challenge rating, you balance the encounter budget, and you make absolutely sure that the monsters are perfectly scaled to the player's current hit points and, their damage output.
Right. It's safe.
Exactly. It's safe. The players trade blows with the monsters,
Mm-hmm.
relying completely on their character sheets to dictate the outcome, until the math just sort of favors one side over the other. It's very much combat as sport, an arena fight where the playing field is, well, inherently designed to be fair.
And the comfort of that structure is totally undeniable. I mean, it gives the referee a safety net. You know exactly how the gears turn, and you know the exact mathematical probability of survival for the party. But the moment you step out of that modern arena and into the untamed deep woods of the old-school Renaissance framework, that safety net is completely ripped away. We're looking at a gameplay landscape built on the philosophy of combat as war. In this space, fairness is just an illusion.
A total illusion.
Yeah, encounters are inherently asymmetric, and the environment itself is actively hostile to you.
And that asymmetry is, that's the absolute definition of a tabletop Wild West. Which brings us to today. Welcome back to Into the Megadungeon, Episode 5. We are tossing those load-bearing blueprints right out the window today.
Oh, we are definitely burning the blueprints.
Last time, in Episode 4, we did a deep dive into Carcass Crawler Issue 2. Today, our mission is to take a comprehensive deep dive into the official old-school essentials zine from Necrotic Gnome, Carcass Crawler Issue 3.
Such a good issue.
It's incredible. And just to set our ground rules right up front for the listener, the aspiring or veteran referee out there looking to level up your game, we have a massive stack of sources and notes from this issue in front of us. But to protect the creators at Necrotic Gnome from any copyright strikes, we aren't going to be reading verbatim text from the book.
Right, no direct quotes. We're stripping the engine down to show you the actual game design philosophy underneath. Our goal here is to dissect the mechanics, the deeply weird flavor, and the practical utility of this content at the table.
Because that's the core why of this deep dive. We want to show you how Issue 3 acts as a modular toolkit. It provides these wild, non-standard player classes, incredibly tactical gear, a horrifying woodland ecology, and honestly, a total masterclass in monster creation to keep your campaigns feeling fresh, dangerous, and completely unpredictable.
Unpredictable is the perfect word for it.
So let's start by looking at the very people kicking down the dungeon doors. Section 1. The new roster. Before a referee can even think about populating a hex map with terrors, they have to understand the capabilities of the adventurers.
You have to know who is walking into the woods.
Exactly. And Issue 3 introduces a roster of 5 wildly non-standard character options that fundamentally shift the flavor of a campaign. Take the Beastmaster, for instance.
Oh, I love the Beastmaster. It's got those heavy 1982 film vibes.
Total 80s fantasy movie vibes.
Yeah.
And mechanically, they wear leather or chainmail, they carry shields, but their true power is entirely externalized into the environment. They try to tame wild animals.
Right, and the mechanism of that taming is where the game design really shines. Like, a modern system might just grant the character a magical companion that scales passively as you level up. But here, the referee makes a standard 2d6 reaction roll.
Yes, the 2d6 roll.
If the dice show an 8 or higher, the animal becomes a loyal companion. That's it.
I want to look at the mathematical probability of that 2d6 roll for a second, because it is so crucial to understanding the tension at the table. If you're rolling a standard d20, a 40% chance is just a flat target. It operates like a coin flip with a slightly weighted edge.
Right, linear probability.
Exactly, but rolling 2d6 creates a bell curve. The most common result is a 7. Hitting an 8 pushes you slightly up the slope of that curve. It means there's a very real, tangible risk of failure. If you step up to a wild panther in a dark cavern and try to, establish dominance, and the referee rolls a 3 on that bell curve.
Oh man, a 3's bad news.
It's terrible news. That panther isn't just ignoring you, it is actively hostile. It's going to attack.
And the consequences of that failure are immediate and lethal. But even when you succeed, the limitations placed on the companion are really fascinating for long-term campaign balance. The rules state you get 1 companion per experience level, but the total hit dice of those companions cannot exceed the Beastmaster's level.
That is such an elegant restriction.
It really is. So if you're a 3rd level Beastmaster, you could theoretically manage 3 one-hit die wolves, or, you could pool that capacity into a single 3-hit die giant cat.
Which creates a beautiful, self-regulating ecosystem of power. It scales perfectly. But more importantly, it introduces this profound emotional and logistical weight to the campaign.
Totally.
If your 3-hit die giant cat dies to a spike trap in the second room of the dungeon, it does not magically respawn after a long rest.
Nope, it's just gone.
It's dead. You have lost a massive portion of your combat capability right there. And the only way to replace it is to physically abandon the dungeon, trek back into the dangerous wilderness, track down a new predator, and risk that 2d6 reaction roll all over again.
Which is terrifying. The companion is a living, breathing part of the world, not just an extension of the character sheet. Now contrast that deep wilderness connection with the Dragonborn.
Ah, the Dragonborn.
Yeah, these are reptilian humanoids. They get a natural +1 bump to their armor class due to their tough scales. But the actual combat stats are honestly secondary to what happens at the macro level of the campaign.
Right, because at 9th level, they can build a stronghold.
Exactly.
But they don't just attract random peasant farmers and generic men-at-arms like a standard fighter would.
Yeah.
They attract their specific clan. They gain access to Dragonborn mercenaries.
And this shifts the entire paradigm of play. The game transitions from a micro-level dungeon crawl where you're, counting torches and rations.
Sweating over every copper piece.
Yeah, exactly, into a macro-level domain management game. You are now engaging in clan-based political warfare. You're commanding troop movements, defending territory. The character race dictates the geopolitical landscape of the referee's world.
That's so cool. Let's pivot from the geopolitical to the deeply unsettling, the mutoid.
Oh, boy. The Mitator.
This is a demi-human race composed of completely mismatched animal parts. We're talking reptile scales mixed with bird talons or insectoid carapace. Just a total freak of nature.
An absolute outcast, yeah.
Mechanically, the source material notes they function similarly to the thief class regarding stealth skills, using percentage dice for hiding in shadows and moving silently. But there's a massive caveat here, and I love this. The referee rolls those checks secretly.
Secret rolls are a foundational pillar of building tension in old-school game design. I mean, if a player rolls their own stealth check and sees a 95 on the dice, they metagame. They can't help it.
The absolute metagame.
They know they failed, so they immediately change their behavior. They stop creeping down the hall and just draw their sword because they know the jig is up.
Which completely shatters the immersion. When the referee rolls behind the screen, the player declares their action like, I am creeping past the sleeping troll, and they just have to live in the agonizing tension of the unknown.
Yes, you don't know if you're completely silent or if you just snapped a dry branch echoing through the cavern. You have to commit to your choices.
And those choices get even wilder when you factor in the random mutation table, because you roll to determine which mismatched body parts you possess.
The table is incredible.
You might roll beast ears, giving you a 3 in 6 chance to hear noise through heavy oak doors, which gives the party a massive scouting advantage. Or you might roll pincer arms.
The pincer arms are so gross, but such a masterclass in disrupting the standard action economy. Initially, they only do a tiny amount of damage.
Right, like a D2 or something.
Yeah, but they lock on. They deal continuous automatic damage every single round until the victim successfully saves against paralysis.
Imagine the sheer terror of that mechanic. It's horrific for a player if a mutoid NPC attacks them, but it is equally potent when the player uses it against a monster.
Oh, absolutely. You bypass the need to constantly roll to hit against a high armor class. You latch on and you force the monster to spend its action economy trying to break free rather than attacking your allies.
It's brilliant crowd control. Or, look at the spring legs. You gain the ability to jump 30 feet forward in a single bound. And if you're wielding a spear, this counts as a charge, delivering double damage.
You're weaponizing physics at that point.
You literally turn yourself into a living biomechanical ballista. You bypass the front line of goblin defenders entirely, launch yourself over their heads, and just skewer the goblin shaman in the back row.
It demands three-dimensional spatial reasoning from the players. You're not just moving on a flat grid anymore. And, speaking of entirely alien mindsets, the Mycelians bring an entirely different flavor of horror to the roster.
Mushroom people.
Yes, mouthless, telepathic, humanoid mushrooms native to the deep underworld. They possess infravision, allowing them to see 60 feet in pitch blackness, which, as we know, is a massive logistical advantage when you are desperately trying to conserve lantern oil.
It saves so much money in inventory space.
Yeah.
But their signature tactical asset comes online at 3rd level with the Spore Spray.
This ability is wild.
Once per day, they can spray a target. If that target fails a poison save, they are completely paralyzed for 1 round per level of the mycelium.
We really need to contextualize how devastating that is in this specific rule set. Like in a modern game, combat might drag on for 10 rounds, right?
Yeah, easily.
And a status effect might give you a minor debuff or allow a saving throw at the end of every single turn to break free. But in OSE, combat is brutal, decisive, and incredibly fast. An entire combat encounter might only last 3 or 4 rounds total.
Exactly. So if a 3rd level mycelium paralyzes a target for 3 full rounds, that isn't just a debuff. That is a death sentence. The monster is removed from the action economy entirely, allowing the rest of the party to focus fire elsewhere, or simply walk up and execute the paralyzed threat.
And the lore hints that mycelians are connected to fungal zombies, adding this layer of grim, parasitic survival to their whole culture. It's so dark.
It really is. Now, rounding out the roster are the Tiefling's fiendish outcasts, with a mysterious lineage who usually live on the fringes of society. They offer incredible versatility, able to utilize all weapons, leather, chainmail, and shields.
A very solid, adaptable class.
But the zine also provides an optional rule for separating race and class entirely, which changes everything.
It really opens up the sandbox. This means Mycelian doesn't just have to be your class. You could play a Mycelian druid, capped at 5th level, or a tiefling assassin.
Okay, but I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Looking at this specific rule and the tone of these classes, doesn't adding telepathic mushroom people and spring-legged mutants dilute the classic, gritty, Tolkien-esque vibe that OSE is known for?
That's a very fair concern.
Like, it feels like we're taking a traditional medieval fantasy stew and suddenly pouring in a bunch of weird sci-fi hot sauce. You know what I mean?
I completely get that. But the zine actually anticipates that exact reaction. There's a sidebar titled Too Many Options that explicitly warns referees against throwing everything into the pot at once. The beauty of OSE is curation. If you want a grounded, low-magic, gritty game of knights and political intrigue, then yeah, a telepathic mushroom person with a giant crab claw completely shatters the tonal consistency. A referee shouldn't allow everything.
Right, you wouldn't put a space alien in a gritty medieval war movie. You have to curate.
Exactly. You pick 7 to 10 classes that fit your specific world. If you're running an alien underworld-focused campaign entirely in the dark, you might ban humans, elves, and dwarves entirely, and mandate that everyone plays mycelians and mutoids.
That sounds like an amazing campaign, actually.
Right. The toolkit isn't a mandate to use everything. It is a palette of colors. You, as the referee, choose which colors to paint with. It's about building a bespoke setting.
That makes total sense. So this shift in player power and the bizarre nature of their new abilities inherently demands a closer look at what they're actually taking with them into these curated environments. Because in old-school gaming, a hero is truly only as capable as their inventory.
Absolutely. Which brings us to Section 2, Gearing Up. The Advanced Equipment Expansion.
Issue 3 radically expands the OSE Armory, introducing 40 new adventuring items, 7 new weapons, and 5 new types of armor. And this draws heavy inspiration from the advanced rule sets of the late 1970s and 1984.
We're talking about highly tactical, entirely mundane gear. Let's frame this entirely around the concept of agency and consequence. In a system where you don't have a character sheet full of magical cooldown powers, your agency is derived directly from your backpack.
Yes, the backpack is your superpower. Caltrops are the perfect example of this. You purchase a bag of 20 iron spikes for practically nothing, you scatter them, and they cover a 5 by 5 foot square.
Just a classic area denial tool.
But the mechanics are what make it sing.
Yeah.
Any creature moving through that space has a 2 in 6 chance of stepping on a spike. If they do, their movement speed is slashed by 50% for a full 24 hours, unless they receive magical healing.
Let's analyze the psychology of that in a chase scenario. You kick down a door, and you realize the monster inside has double your hit dice.
Oh, you run. The OSR philosophy dictates you run immediately.
Right. But if the monster is faster than you, running isn't enough. It will catch you. But if you toss a bag of caltrops into a narrow dungeon choke point as you flee...
Oh man, you aren't attacking the monster's hit points. You're attacking its movement capability. You're manipulating the environment to ensure your own survival.
It forces the players to look at the architecture of the dungeon as a weapon. The hallways aren't just empty space, they're tactical bottlenecks. And the block and tackle does the exact same thing for physics and logistics. It reduces the effective weight of an object by 75%.
I love the block and tackle, because in a modern game, if players find a massive iron-bound chest full of silver coins that weighs like 800 pounds, the barbarian just makes a high-strength check, and the referee kind of hand-waves the physics of lifting it.
Right, they just stuff it in a bag of holding and move on.
Exactly. But OSED refuses to hand-wave the physics. You cannot just lift it. The game shifts from abstract heroism to concrete logistical reality.
To extract that treasure, the players have to use a block and tackle. They need a structural anchor point in the ceiling. They need 4 times the length of rope, and most importantly, they need time. Rigging a block and tackle might take an hour of in-game time.
And time in a dungeon equals wandering monster checks.
Yes. The referee is rolling dice behind the screen every 2 turns. The players are agonizing over the decision. Do we spend an hour rigging this chest, risking a wandering troll stumbling upon us, or do we just leave the silver behind?
The block and tackle creates a high-stakes risk-reward scenario purely through the mechanics of encumbrance and time management. So brilliant.
And then the bullseye lantern manipulates a completely different resource, light and line of sight.
Right, because a standard lantern illuminates a wide radius, which allows you to see everything, but it also turns your party into a glowing beacon for every predator in the cavern.
You're just a walking dinner bell. But the bullseye lantern casts a narrow 60-foot beam, and it has a physical shutter.
It turns exploration into a tactical stealth operation. You flash the beam down the corridor, spot the ghoul feasting on a corpse, shutter the lantern into pitch blackness, and then silently coordinate an ambush. Light becomes a tactical asset rather than just a binary state of seeing versus blindness.
We also see the harsh economic realities of adventuring encoded directly into the holy symbols.
This blew my mind when I read it.
It's so good. A first-level cleric with no money can purchase a cheap wooden holy symbol for just 5 gold pieces. But when they attempt to channel their deity to turn the undead, they take a -1 penalty to the roll.
Their poverty directly translates to mechanical weakness.
Exactly. But if they survive, if they extract enough treasure to purchase a solid gold holy symbol for 100 gold pieces, they gain a +1 bonus to their turning rolls. This perfectly encapsulates the gold as experience philosophy.
Right. Wealth doesn't just buy you a nicer tavern room or a fancier cloak.
Yeah.
Wealth acts as a mechanical buffer against death.
And the new weapons expand that tactical decision matrix even further. We get weapons that introduce status effects. The blackjack deals minimal physical damage, but it is specifically designed for non-lethal knockouts. The blowgun deals 0 physical damage. Its sole purpose is to serve as a delivery mechanism for bloodstream poisons from a safe distance.
Then you have the entangling weapons, the bolas, the net, and the whip. With a whip, you strike a target 10 feet away, and you face a choice. Do you roll for standard damage to whittle down their hit points, or do you wrap the whip around their legs to entangle them?
You are intentionally sacrificing your ability to deal damage in exchange for controlling the enemy's actions and stopping their movement. It completely alters the action economy. You're shifting the combat from a race to 0 hit points into a tactical puzzle of crowd control.
Okay, but again, let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Doesn't tracking the exact cost and weight of glass marbles, twine, and blocks and tackles bog down the fast-paced theater of the mind gameplay that old-school players love? I mean, these items kind of turn standard fighters into fantasy Batmen with utility belts.
That's a really great analogy, the fantasy Batman. But honestly, no, it doesn't bog it down, because in old-school gaming, your character sheet isn't filled with superhero abilities. Your powers are literally the items in your backpack. These items encourage creative problem-solving over just trading sword blows. Using a whip to entangle a monster or tossing marbles in a hallway to escape a chase is the absolute pinnacle of OSR tactical play. It rewards player ingenuity rather than character stats.
I see what you mean. You aren't looking at your sheet for a button to press. You're looking at your inventory to see what physical tools you can combine. But this high-agency toolkit requires a high-threat environment.
Oh, absolutely. If the players have access to caltrops, blocks, and tackles, and entangling whips, the environment must evolve to attack their resources rather than just trading blows with their hit points.
Exactly. Which brings us to Section 3. Into the deep woods. The players are mutated, they are armed with nets and caltrops. Where are they going? The zine shifts focus to the deep, shadowed glades of ancient forests, introducing 8 terrifying monsters that will put all that new gear to the absolute test.
These aren't your standard goblins. Let's walk the listener through this horrific ecology, starting with the ghoul stag.
The art for this thing is nightmare fuel.
Visually, it is a masterclass in establishing tone. It is a massive herbivore, a moose or an elk, that has been infected by a ghoul's bite. It's now an undead, meat-eating predator wandering the forest in absolute silence.
And its massive antlers are draped in its own shedding, rotting skin and the flayed flesh of its victims. Just horrific.
The visual horror is striking, but the mechanics are what make it lethal. Because it is undead, it is entirely immune to sleep spells, charm magic, or any form of mind reading. The magic user's standard crowd control toolkit is instantly invalidated.
Right, you can't just cast sleep and walk away, and if it bites you, you must save against paralysis.
We established earlier how dangerous paralysis is. If the party's fighter is paralyzed by the ghoul stag, the remaining players cannot just stand their ground and fight.
No, they have to figure out how to drag a paralyzed companion in heavy chainmail through a dark forest while a rotting moose is hunting them.
Which is such a great narrative set piece. And if they blindly flee into the canopy, they might run directly into the corpse vine.
Oh, the corpse vine. This monster weaponizes verticality and player empathy.
Yes, empathy is the trap. It's a carnivorous plant cluster hanging high in the trees. It uses the dead bodies of its previous victims as puppet lures.
So gross.
The vines thread into the nervous system of a corpse, causing it to twitch, moan, and mimic the sounds of a wounded traveler.
It manipulates the player's natural inclination to investigate or help. You hear someone moaning in the bushes, you walk over, and when you step underneath the canopy, the vines drop, hook you, hoist you 20 feet into the air, and automatically constrict for a 6-sided die of damage every single round while digesting you.
And standard melee tactics are completely useless when the fighter is dangling upside down 20 feet in the air. You can't reach the core of the plant.
This is where the inventory becomes your only salvation. The rules explicitly state the corpse vine takes double damage from fire. If the players brought flasks of oil and a torch, they survive. If they only brought swords, they die.
It rewards preparation, but then you have things like the nettle skull spider, which targets an entirely different resource.
Tell me about this one, because this messed me up.
It's a highly mobile, carnivorous plant that roots itself inside a humanoid skull. It grows stinging green fronds out of the eye sockets to scuttle around.
Just a walking skull with plant legs.
Exactly. But the physical damage is secondary. If it hits a player with both of its lash attacks in a single round, it injects spores directly into the brain.
And this mechanic is utterly brutal. It changes the entire psychological state of the player at the table. Every single day after infection, the character loses 1 point of their intelligence stat.
Permanently. Well, until cured magically.
Right. This is not hit point damage that you can just sleep off in a tent. This alters the character's core capability matrix.
It creates a death spiral, a ticking clock of dread.
Exactly. When your HP is low, you just play cautiously until you can rest. But permanent stat drain instills genuine panic. The player realizes their character is slowly losing their cognitive function. And if that intelligence hits 0, they die, and their head pops off to form a new spider.
The entire focus of the campaign immediately pivots from finding treasure to finding a magical cure disease before the wizard forgets how to speak.
It's amazing. Speaking of attacking the player's most prized possessions, let's talk about the Spellcroaker. This is perhaps the most mechanically devastating creature in the entire zine.
Oh, without a doubt. The adult is a massive, magically infused tree frog, about 4.5 feet long. But the true threat lies in its swarms of scintillating, flying tadpoles.
These tadpoles do not care about your hit points. They are voraciously hungry for magical energy. They fly through the air and physically attach themselves to the player's enchanted swords, their magical plate armor, or their potions.
And for every single tadpole attached to an item, there is a cumulative 1 in 6 chance per round that the item is permanently, irrevocably drained of its magic.
Wait, really? A legendary +2 longsword that the party spent 10 sessions questing for just reverts to a mundane piece of steel.
Just a regular piece of steel, gone forever.
The emotional devastation of losing a magic item in old-school gaming cannot be overstated. Magic items are incredibly rare. They are the true marker of a character's progression. When players see a Spellcroaker, the absolute last thing they're going to do is draw their magic sword.
It forces an immediate paradigm shift in combat. You have to sheath your best weapon and pull out the mundane tools. You throw the net, you set a trap with caltrops. The threat of losing the magic item is the engine that drives creative, non-magical problem solving.
It perfectly connects back to our discussion on gear. The horror creates the necessity for ingenuity.
Exactly. And the horror takes on a deeply psychological edge with the stick children.
Oh man, the stick children.
These are 3-foot-tall insects that secrete a biological glue, covering themselves in bark and branches for camouflage. But the uncanny valley aspect is that they intentionally mimic the silhouette of human children.
That is horrifying.
Yeah.
You're exploring the deep woods and you spot a group of small children standing perfectly still in the shadows.
And the moment you approach to see if they're okay, the illusion breaks, and you see serrated mandibles.
And they are intelligent enough to use their own secretions to craft wooden weapons that provide a +1 bonus to hit and damage. You are fighting an organized, tool-using threat, not just mindless beasts.
It's an ambush. And the ecosystem synergy is rounded out by the bracket folk and the burl bugs.
Right, the bracket folk are these telepathic arboreal tree fungi that can puff paralyzing spores.
Yeah, they use those telepathically aimed spores to animate the surrounding vegetation, entangling the party.
And while the players are trapped by the animated roots, the burl bugs, which are these simian creatures camouflaged as tree burls, rain down rocks and pine cones from the high branches with a +1 bonus to their attack rolls due to their natural accuracy.
It is a coordinated, ranged artillery ambush utilizing natural cover. It's a cohesive, terrifying biome.
But I gotta ask, these monsters seem incredibly punishing compared to standard goblins. I mean, the Spellcroaker tadpole's literally eating hard-earned magic items, or the skull spider permanently draining intelligence. Won't mechanics like this just make players rage quit and flip the table?
I mean, I get why you'd think that, but no. Detail how old-school gameplay thrives on high stakes and horrific consequences. Monsters in OSE shouldn't just be bags of hit points to be whittled down. They should threaten the character's most prized resources, magic items, stats, and agency.
Because that forces them to act differently.
Exactly. This forces players to run away, research their foes, and use all that new equipment instead of just charging in. Throwing fire at the corpse vine or using a net on the Spellcroaker, it makes the game a puzzle, not a math problem.
That's a great distinction. But any veteran referee knows that eventually the players will decipher the ecosystem right. They will memorize the vulnerabilities of the corpse vine and learn to run from the Spellcroaker. The mystery degrades over time.
Which is why the final section of this zine is arguably the most vital piece of game design text available to a referee. Section 4. The Referee's Forge.
The Forge is an 8-step masterclass in creating bespoke monsters from scratch. It teaches you how to throw away the standardized blueprints entirely.
The foundation of the system is acknowledging a core truth of asymmetric design. Monsters do not operate on the same physics engine as player characters.
They don't have classes or ability scores.
Right. They don't roll for strength or dexterity scores, and they do not follow the same rules for skill progression. This realization completely liberates the referee from the burden of spreadsheet balancing.
So step 1 of the process is, imagine. Fiction first. You do not start by assigning points to a constitution stat. You start by picturing the creature in your mind. What does it look like? Does it live in a society?
And this step heavily advocates for reskinning.
I love reskin.
It's the best tool a referee has. If the referee wants to introduce, say, a vampiric, hairless bloodhound that hunts the party through the city slums, they do not need to invent new math. They take the existing stat block for a giant leech, which already has mechanics for attaching to targets and draining blood, and they simply describe it to the players as a skeletal dog.
The mechanics are invisible to the players. The fiction is what they interact with.
Precisely. But when a referee does need to build from the ground up, steps 2 and 3 provide the mathematical anchor: hit dice and armor class.
And it's incredibly elegant. Hit dice is the singular metric that dictates the creature's challenge rating. It determines their attack bonuses and their saving throws. A 1-hit die creature is a minion. An 8-hit die creature is an apex predator.
And uncoupling armor class from a dexterity score is brilliant. If the fiction dictates that the creature is an ethereal wisp of smoke, or a golem made of pure obsidian, you simply assign it a low, hard-to-hit armor class based on toughness, magic, or agility. You do not need to justify it with a high dexterity stat, you just trust the fiction.
Steps 4 and 5 translate the creature's biology into mechanics. Movement and attacks. You factor in locomotion. A creature with many legs might move faster over rough terrain. A massive creature might roll an 8-sided die for damage instead of the standard 6-sided die.
But the true genius of the old-school essentials math is found in steps 6 and 7, special abilities and derived stats, specifically the asterisk system.
The asterisk system is my favorite part of OSE.
In a modern, highly structured system, if you want to give a monster a petrifying gaze or a breath weapon, you have to calculate how that impacts the challenge rating through a really complex point-buy formula.
It takes hours. But in OSE, you just put an asterisk next to the monster's hit dice. That is the entire calculation. A standard 4-hit die monster becomes a 4-star hit die monster.
The asterisk serves as a mechanical flag that automatically increases the experience points awarded to the players for defeating it. It perfectly balances the increased danger with a scaled reward without requiring a calculator.
And Step 8 finalizes the creature by assigning morale, alignment, and treasure types. Morale is perhaps the most underutilized stat in modern gaming. It dictates when a monster will break and run away. A goblin might flee the moment its leader is killed, but mindless undead are assigned a morale of 12.
Meaning they never flee. They lack the psychological capacity for fear. They will fight until they are physically hacked into pieces. That completely changes how the players have to approach the combat.
And assigning specific treasure types, from individual coins to massive dragon hordes, grounds the monster in the game's economy.
Mm.
But, looking at all this, for a brand new referee, isn't it incredibly intimidating to just guess the AC or HD without a rigid, mathematically balanced formula?
I can see how it would be.
It's like we're sculpting with clay instead of building with rigid Lego blocks. You aren't snapping predefined math pieces together. You're just molding the stats to fit the vibe. Doesn't that feel risky?
It does at first, but honestly, it unpacks the freeing nature of the OSR philosophy. It liberates the referee from hours of spreadsheet balancing. If the fiction dictates the monster has iron-hard scales, you just give it an AC of 4. You rely on hit dice as the ultimate anchor for balance and trust your intuition for the rest.
So you don't worry about it being perfectly fair.
Exactly. The encounters aren't supposed to be perfectly symmetrical. If the referee imagines a terrifying 10-hit die obsidian golem and places it in the first room of the dungeon, the math works exactly as intended. The players are supposed to recognize they are outmatched, throw their caltrops on the floor, and run for their lives. It empowers the referee to focus on the story and the terror of the encounter rather than the math.
That is such a powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
When you look at Carcass Crawler Issue 3 in its entirety, you realize it isn't just a collection of optional rules. It is a modular toolkit that gives a referee bizarre new player options, deeply tactical gear, a horrifying woodland ecosystem, and the mechanical confidence to design their own monsters.
Its immense utility, it really serves as a reminder to the listener that tabletop role-playing, especially in the OSE framework, is a living, breathing exercise in creativity. These tools are designed to shatter the predictable routines that players might have fallen into.
You do not have to settle for trading blows with standard goblins in an arena of balanced math. You can make the woods weird, dangerous, and completely unpredictable.
Absolutely.
So as you head out to prep your next session, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We have spent an hour dissecting the terrifying mechanics of fungal spores, undead stags, and magic-eating frogs. But consider your own role at the table. What if the true terrifying potential of old-school gaming isn't found in the monsters provided in the books, but in the realization that as a referee, you are completely unbound by formulas to create your player's next nightmare?
The only limit to the dungeon's horrors is your own imagination.
Keep exploring, keep pushing the boundaries, and we will see you next time on The Deep Dive.